کنفرانس آنلاین رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت ایران با شماری از نمایندگان پارلمان اروپا به دعوت کمیته دوستان ایران آزاد در پارلمان اروپا.
وضعیت وخامتبار حقوق بشر در ایران، رژیم متزلزل و تحریم سراسری انتخابات، وظایف اتحادیه اروپا در این شرایط چیست؟ قسمت دوم. سخنان آنا فوتیگا، وزیر خارجه پیشین لهستان، نماینده پارلمان اروپا. میلان زبر، عضو کمیسیون خارجه پارلمان اروپا و رئیس مشترک دوستان ایران آزاد در پارلمان اروپا. خاویر زالزالخوس، معاون کمیته ویژه دخالت‌های خارجی در تمامی پروسه‌های دموکراتیک اتحادیه اروپا و عضو کمیسیون خارجه پارلمان اروپا و رئیس مشترک دوستان ایران آزاد در پارلمان اروپا. آنتونیو لوپز آستوریزوایت، دبیرکل حزب مردم اروپا و نماینده پارلمان اروپا از اسپانیا. پتراس آستراویچیوس، نماینده پارلمان اروپا از لیتوانی، عضو کمیسیون خارجه و سوکمیسیون امنیت و دفاع پارلمان اروپا.
It's really good to see and hear you, dear Madam President, dear Mariam Rajavi. It's so important to have temporary briefings on situation of Iran. As you know, within the European Parliament, we are very much dedicated to the cause of freedom of Iranian people. We very much stand by Iranian people in their very difficult time. It is most important to have those links of solidarity. And as you know, I still hope that I'll be able to travel to Iran and see this country free and prospering and acting to the benefit of all Iranian citizens. Well, recently I read and listened to some leaked tapes of Iranian regimes representatives like foreign ministers. They usually speak what we already know. We monitor situation in your country, and we try to be outspoken on this, not to let the regime to silence either people or us. We are aware also of atrocious, vicious acts of Iranian regime vis-a-vis us Europeans on our own territory. We monitor developments after Paris meeting, and it is good that EU member states are able to prosecute those who dare to attack free Iranian community. Once more, it's good to see you, and my deepest words of solidarity to all Iranians, in particular those suffering in the country.
Members, the Friends of Free Iran, we have, in our capacity as MEPs, continuously worked to support and promote in the European Parliament the efforts of the Iranian people for democratic change. As clearly stated by Ms. Rajavi, the situation in Iran remains critical within continuous human rights violations, execution of political prisoners, and terrorist activities of the Iran regime on European soil. There is still no development to address 1988 massacre. We need a stronger response from the EU in its policy towards Iran and introduction of stricter sanctions under Magnitsky Act, especially in the light of the recent convictions of the Iranian diplomat and the rising concerns about Iran's nuclear weapons program, as you mentioned before. I believe that the 10-point plan outlined by you, Madam President, and your calls for the establishment of genuine republic based on free and fair elections deserve our support. It's not only our moral duty to support the democratic movements in Iran, but it is also essential for security and peace in the Middle East and Europe.
It's a great honor for me to be co-chair of this group, and I hope that I will be able to continue with my humble contribution to the common cause of supporting a future of free and democratic Iran. As I had the opportunity to tell Madame Rajavi, this is not only a political commitment, and as always, it's a moral commitment that goes beyond our political alignments, our own ideologies, and that is a cause that should unite us behind those who are staying loyal to their ideas, loyal to their country, loyal to their people, and are paying dearly for that, sometimes with their own lives. So let me take this opportunity to pay tribute to all those who are risking their lives, are risking their personal integrity for the cause of freedom for the fellow citizens in Iran. I have no doubt that we will be able to meet in Iran, and we will be recalling these meetings with the hope and the happiness of having done a good job. So, Madam Rajavi, this is another expression of our support and our admiration for what you're doing. I do appreciate very much your first remarks on these topics, and obviously presidential election, the coming presidential election in this troubled context that you have described of a regime increasingly unpopular, social unrest, the dividing line, to what extent it is real, I don't know, between reformists and hardliners, and obviously the need of the regime to manipulate and to sell this election as a way to legitimize the regime. The nuclear talks, in which we know that the European Union is playing a very active role, along with a new approach by the American administration to, bring back Iran to the negotiating table. But it is true that we know that there are powerful forces within the regime clearly simply reject any kind of deal. We know what the position is of the Republican Guard. And the fact is that Iran, the regime, has continued to continue the process of enrichment of uranium to very dangerous levels. So it's important to see what we are heading into these negotiations that are supposed or wish to resume. And certainly the third issue that I would highlight is the response by the European Union. On one hand, there is as Madame Rajavi and recall, a couple of weeks ago, the Council imposed sanctions on 8 members of top officials of the security forces, including the commander-in-chief of the Republican Guard and 3 entities. But at the same time, we have come across the silence of the High Representatives, after being proof in the trial of Antwerp that Iran was conducting terrorist operations, not 30 years ago, but in 2018, with very specific targets, the Iranian resistance, Mrs. Rajabi, among others, and all members of the resistance gathering in Paris. And the reaction so far has been silence. Milan and I myself had the initiative to put forward a written question to the High Representatives on this issue, and nothing has been said yet by Mr. Borrell. We cannot ignore this fact, and this is something that has to be taken into account in order to promote a clear response of the European Union, not only to this proven terrorist strategy of Iran on European soil, but also vis-a-vis the coming events, and mainly the presidential election to be held in June.
I have always tried to advance the EU's relation with the Middle East in a constructive manner. The appalling behavior of the Iranian regime and the blind eye that many Europeans turn towards it is undoubtedly one of our main obstacles. We need the European Union to be coherent and firm in its relations with the Iranian regime. We finally have a much needed and useful tool in the fight against human rights abuses, the EU Magnitsky Act. Given the worrying ongoing human rights situation in Iran, I urge my colleagues to find the political will to use the Magnitsky Act more actively. Because at the end of the day, the only language these regimes understand is that of pressure. The EU decision to sanction a number of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and security forces commanders for their role in the suppression of the 2019 protests, where 1,500 innocent protesters were killed and thousands more were arrested and imprisoned, was a step in the right direction. However, many of those accountable have still not been sanctioned. The Iranian regime bears the full responsibility for the killing and deteriorating human rights situation in the country. It is undeniable that the autocratic regime supports terrorism in the region and beyond, and here the European Union has to be very assertive. This was evidenced following the conviction of the regime diplomat Asadullah Hassani, that was mentioned before, for plotting to bomb an opposition rally in 2018. The EU not only did not take any punitive action, but as we all know, it's set to conclude an agreement with the Iranian regime. The current negotiations in Vienna are crucial. It is vital that all the loopholes of the previous agreement are closed, while we all want to prevent the Iranian regime from obtaining a nuclear bomb. It is important that the negotiators do not achieve this goal simply by making concessions to the regime. The solution is to deny the regime the right to enrichment and to have robust enforcement mechanisms. In addition, I think that the EU should adopt a comprehensive policy that includes focusing on human rights situation, the regime's use of terrorism, its meddling in the region, and support for parliamentary groups, as well as a firm policy on the nuclear issue. More than anything, however, we need to support the Iranian people and the democratic forces within the country. The Iranian people in the uprising in 2018 and 2019 showed their deep desire for equality and no discrimination against religious minorities or different ethnicities. This is why we need to support those who fight every day for such changes, such as you, Madam President Mariam Rajavi, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, and the Friends of Free Iran. Thank you for your time.
Madam Rajavi, thank you for this message of hope and determination to continue fight for free Iran. I think this is an important moment for, I would call maybe our today's meeting a kind of our renewal of our commitment, of our political commitment to continue this fight. You know, fight for freedom and democracy sometimes has no time limit. Nobody knows when the regime will crack down, when it will be a final fundamental change, which will be for better of people, not for mullah's regime. That's most important for us, I mean, to be, you know, not led by any naivety that things will change by themselves. No way. And even negotiations on this nuclear deal should not let us to be, again, fooled around and, you know, kind of expectations that this is a civic project. You rightly said, the purpose is a military buildup. It's a threat against other neighboring countries. And we can't close eyes on this. But again, Madam Rajavi, I think this is important to remember some events, some historical events as, for example, the massacre of 30,000 political prisoners by clerical regime, which happened in 1988. 31 years ago, in summer, we got to know this absolutely crime against humanity, political crime which was executed by regime most military wing. But again, even this week, as we heard, the regime is trying to demolish Havaran Cemetery, the site where the mass graves of the victims of massacre of 88 is buried. So again, I mean, they are not just killing people, but they are trying to erase a memory about those people. And we have to raise our voice, and we have to ask our union's political leadership to keep an eye on all those unjustified acts by mullah's regime, and not to be, you know, led by some promises, empty promises. You are completely right, and my colleagues have mentioned this again and again. So we have so-called Magnitsky human rights sanctions regime, and I'm looking forward, I mean, to the first bunch of regime people to be included on the sanction regime. We have to send a very clear message to regime. I personally don't know, I mean, when and how long we will have to keep this fight on, but Madam Rajavi, I can tell you that we will not abandon people of Iran. And one day will come when we will speak about free Iran. Iran, I mean, you are speaking about, dreaming about, and we have to do every day something more to advance our course towards this ultimate goal for free Iran. Thank you, Chair.